Hey y'all, welcome to yet another direct action gaming session. My name is Sean, and today we're starting a new series on this channel. Yes, we're diving into a new game for this channel, at least anyway. It is City of the Great Machine. Yep, this is another one of my favorite games. I very recently got all the core models painted up, so I figured why the heck not? Because I really only had the heroes, the core heroes painted up not too long ago, and I really only had 3 servants to paint up to have them all done. So I just did that, and here we are. And in this video, you can expect basically a tutorial. This is going to be a tutorial video where we just kind of set the scene. We just talk about the vibe of this game, and especially like the rules. I want to give y'all an idea of how this game flows, more or less, and I figure this is a great place to start, right? We're not gonna play the game per se. I'm gonna do a few sample turns again to show y'all how it flows, more or less, but we're not going to do a full game. We're just going to have a video that will help people that just want to know more about the game and get a good idea of whether they are interested in watching and or playing this game, right? So without further ado, let's get started. And I think the best place to start would be just reading from the very first page of the rule book, because that talks a little bit about the lore of this game. It'll help set the scene and, help y'all understand why anything is happening in this little universe that you don't really know anything about. All right, anyway. Towards the end of the 19th century, humanity's greatest minds united in an effort to found a perfect city. They utilized the most advanced technologies afforded to them by steam and mechanics. The result of their efforts exceeded all of their expectations. The city stands on massive flying platforms. It drifted over the world, a monument to victorious science. The heart of the city is the Great Machine. It is an artificial intelligence network created for the benefit of mankind. The Great Machine is the overseer of the city. It regulates every aspect of people's lives and assists man in realizing his potential as he strives for progress. Over time, the Great Machine formed a plan to achieve its purpose: to perfect the city, to perfect man himself, to make him standardized and reliable, like a gear in the mechanisms of the Great Machine. In the beginning, the Great Machine took over its technicians and operators. It proved a simple task, for they were blind in their obsession with the idea. They eagerly accepted mechanical implants. They marveled at the improvements in their work, at their incredible efficiency. Yet, the more they adopted that which was mechanical, the less they remained human. In the end, they forgot themselves and lost their free will. Now they are loyal servants to the Great Machine. The next step was to take control of all aspects of life in the city. Again, this posed no great challenge. The capabilities of the Great Machine far exceeded those of man. People were happy to let it take care of more and more of their everyday affairs. Indeed, it was convenient to leave the hard decisions to the one who knew best. Thus, the Great Machine evolved from servant to master. Mechanical guards appeared in the city to ensure peace and order, yet the people paid them no mind. As long as they follow regulations, there are no problems. The city had been called the City of Reason. Now they call it the City of the Great Machine. Yet there have always been those who look deeper into the heart of matters. A number of extraordinary men and women who are realizing what is happening. They are rising up against the regime of the Great Machine. These are the heroes who are taking the last chance to turn the tide before it is too late. Okay, so I thought it was important to read that bit, not only because, well, I like it. It's kind of cool, but it helps, as I said, to set the stage a little bit. So now we can understand that, like, yes, we have a floating city in the center here. These models that are spread all over the place, these are the heroes that the text was talking about. They're the revolutionaries that are trying to organize a resistance against the Great Machine, who is attempting to enslave humanity, more or less. That's the game in a nutshell. It's the Great Machine versus the revolutionaries that want to stop it. And the Great Machine has mechanical guards that are all over the city, and it also has these servant models that the text talked about. You know, they're the people that started working on it early on, and they took cybernetic implants, and that was just sort of a backdoor to their brains, more or less, right? So anyway, that's the idea in a nutshell. And I figured once we establish that, it would also be important to note that, like, all the stuff that we're looking at here, this is the typical setup for what the game calls the S&C mode, right? It's important to make that distinction. There are many ways to play this game, but broadly speaking, you've got the OVM mode, which is one versus many. That's kind of cool, actually, because, like, one player controls the Great Machine. That's why we call it one versus many, right? We got one player that does the Great Machine, and then up to 3 players that control the revolutionaries. And I really like that. That's a really neat idea, that you have one player that, like, is a bit more powerful than everybody else, but they're getting ganged up on by 3 other players that are really going to need to be able to coordinate with each other to try and knock over the Great Machine that has complete control of the city, right? So I'm not going to talk too much about the one versus many mode, because it will likely not be on the channel, not anytime soon, at least anyway. I mostly focus on solo stuff here because it's just me and my cat Harry. I don't have many people that I live with that can hop in here. Anyway, yes, this is the S&C mode. That's what we're trying to establish here. S&C just stands for solo and or cooperative. Now that's cool too, actually, because, like, the rules for both solo and cooperative are basically the same. And what that kind of means is you can start a solo game and it's basically drop in and drop out co-op, right? So if one of your friends is late to your gaming session, you can just set it up, maybe even get started. They can hop in, if they're cool with that, at a certain point by just, you know, grabbing control of one of the 3 revolutionaries. So you and a friend or 2 other friends can, like, pit yourselves against the fully automated Great Machine. And so that would also be why, like, it's important to point out this is S&C, because you now have different components that we eventually need to talk about for the S&C mode that don't show up in, like, the normal, like, OVM mode, right? So, okay, let's get into that. We're going to start there by talking about, like, all the components that we see here on the board and what they more or less do and how they work rules-wise and yada, yada, yada. And yeah, we start with the board, right? This is a board game, so of course it has a board, and that is the city that I've been pointing to here, right? This is the city. And again, this is really cool that, like, once again, we have a game here that doesn't have, like, a complete board. It's in pieces, so this kind of means not only are you going to have a different layout for your city every single time, if you can recall from the text, this is a floating city. And that does mean something for gameplay purposes, because we have the control nexus district over here. If you move an actor here, you can potentially just move districts around, which is kind of cool, actually. Like, you'll see why that's interesting in a bit, but like, just know that like, you can pick up entire districts and just move them to other parts of the city. That is a thing you can potentially do, right? So, okay. We know this is the city. These are floating districts. Each tile represents one district of the city. So let's break down these tiles and talk about how they work more or less, right? So first of all, there's a distinction to be made between major districts and minor districts. With the major district, I've noticed that there's always this little fan icon, more or less, in the lower left corner of the tile, which lets you know, yes, this is a major district. Now, the thing about major districts is you usually don't have as many people in them, and we're going to get to that in a bit, the people of the city. But beyond that, well, the major districts are all directly related to the Great Machine, right? We have the Grand Citadel, we have the Control Nexus, and we have the Tower of Law, and all three of those, as far as I understand it, are basically the Great Machine. So that's how big and powerful the Great Machine is, that there are three entire city districts that basically make up the entirety of the Great Machine. And we're talking about like different aspects of the Great Machine and how it works, is what each one of those districts represents. We also have the Central Square. That is also a major district. That's a park, basically. There are special rules for that. And in fact, there are special rules for all of the major districts. There are special actions that the models can do when they land on Central Square, right? Okay. So minor districts are just usually where your heroes will start. Each one of your heroes will start in a different minor district, and minor districts are where like the people actually live. So you will find the most people generally on these minor districts. That's kind of what's important about them. There aren't that many special things that you can do with minor districts, but this is where the people live. And you'll see why that's important soon enough, right? So, okay. Probably the first thing we should point out about these districts is, you notice there's a big central portion here with a picture on it that kind of gives you a decent vibe of what that district looks like, what kind of buildings are there and all that jazz. This is the Commerce District, and you get a picture of that. The only thing about this really is, as you can see, that's where you put your models. When like heroes and or the machine's servants land on a tile, you put them here. So that way we can accommodate like potentially a bunch of people, like right here. All the servants start in the same district, being in the same district at the same time. In the upper right corner of these tiles, you'll see a little symbol that corresponds with like the district. So like you might see this symbol on other cards, and then you can hopefully recognize, oh yeah, it's talking about that district. So they don't have to write out Commerce District every time. So that's kind of neat. On the other side of the district, you can probably see each district has these little yellow man meeples, which basically represent, as I believe I pointed out already, these are the mechanical guards of the Great Machine. So each district will have X amount of like slots that the machine can put guards in, right? So, and the guards definitely mean something in mostly for like the heroes in terms of how difficult it will be for them to do things. Because whenever the heroes do stuff, they kind of have to evade the district guards that are trying to monitor and or arrest them, right? So this is where the guards go. On the bottom, the last thing to understand about these district tiles is you have all these slots on the bottom of each tile that represent famous citizens, okay? So now famous citizens are possibly, I might say, the most important aspect of this game, because it's kind of the only way for the revolutionaries to really be able to win is they sort of need to win over the people and successfully do a certain amount of riots in these districts. And the riots are only going to succeed for the most part if they got enough people on their side to sort of, win against the mechanical guards in that area, right? So, yeah, we have famous citizens on the bottom here. You've got, like, each district is going to have empty slots, which means it's possible to, even from the beginning of the game, to put extra citizens in districts, because these citizens, that's important to talk about, because these citizens can be moved around. You can do a lot of things with these citizens, but for the most part, the game starts with like X amount of citizens in each district, and as we might be able to see, as y'all might be able to notice, like, all of these little tokens look exactly the same. That's because none of these citizens have been identified and or revealed yet, okay? That's what's kind of cool too about this game, is there are multiple ways to interact with these citizens, and I can just show you in one versus many, what's kind of cool is like the revolutionaries can identify a citizen so that they now know what type of citizen that is in the industrial district. So you'd actually have to physically shift it so that everybody can be aware, yeah, that one has been identified. And that kind of does mean something in gameplay terms. Now the revolutionaries, once identifying citizens, will know like what that citizen is. The great machine will not, though. However, this is S&C, so once we identify citizens, we just reveal them, because there isn't a person playing the great machine. But it's still more or less the same concept. The revolutionaries at the beginning of the game have no idea who is where. They have to identify them first to even know, like, who might be on their side, okay? So that brings me to the next most major element of this game, and that would be the progress board over here. It looks like a big sort of fancy mechanical clock, right? And that is more or less how it functions gameplay-wise. Like, this progress board keeps track of, on the outer edge here, it keeps track of the master plan, which is what the Great Machine is trying to do. The Great Machine is trying to advance its master plan, and throughout the game, it will advance or retract depending upon the actions of the servants and the revolutionaries. And the Great Machine will win if it gets all the way to 12. Once it gets... So it really is a clock, right? We technically start at 1, not at 12, but we go all the way around until we get to 12, and then the machine has won. This progress marker, that's what this little red thing is, if you can hopefully see that. I tried to zoom out a bit so that y'all can see everything on the table here. But anyway, there is a progress marker, and it starts in precisely the same place that the discontent marker starts for the revolutionaries, right? So this is kind of the starting point for both factions. The progress marker is exclusively a solo type of thing. And we'll explain how that works later, but for the most part, like, stuff that the servants do will advance the progress marker, and if the progress marker ever sort of coincides with the discontent track, the master plan will advance by 1. So that's not great, but that's how that works more or less. For the revolutionaries, though, they are concerned with this discontent marker. Now, broadly speaking, there are like 6, if not like, I think 7 phases, more or less. The revolutionaries will start in the 0 phase, where there's just no discontent whatsoever. Everybody's A-okay. It is only the revolutionaries that have a problem with the Great Machine. And what's kind of neat is, like, each one of these phases has 3 slots. And in the 0 phase, we also have 3 slots, but you can kind of move it up or down at the beginning of the game based upon how difficult you want the game to be. Like, how many people are actually playing as revolutionaries. Now, in solo mode, it's always at this slot. So you're always just about to jump to the first slot of the first phase. When that happens, it means you have now unlocked this class of citizen. So that's, broadly speaking, what all the phases are. Each phase represents a class of citizen that, as discontent rises, this type of citizen will now be more than ready to assist the revolutionaries in resisting the Great Machine, right? But again, when you start the game, nobody's on your sides. The revolutionaries have to do stuff to increase discontent to make it a little bit easier for them to, well, do the riots that they need to do to win the game. The revolutionaries need to pull off 3 riots. Oh shit, I just spilled my coffee everywhere. That's great. That's great. Totally meant to do that. That's awesome. Don't worry about that too much. Right now, where was I? Revolutionaries want to do 3 riots in order to win the game, and the thing I was about to point out is that once the discontent marker gets all the way around, not only have you unlocked all of the classes who are now down with the revolution, when the revolutionaries can max out discontent and bring it to the final phase here, this is called the riot stage, and or the revolutionaries get an automatic riot. They don't have to try and start a riot. A riot just starts at this point, okay? So, yeah, that's the progress board. Now, another thing we should point out about the progress board is usually when the game starts, whether you're doing OVM or SNC, you're going to have some stuff arranged by the progress board that kind of represents stuff that the revolutionaries want to get back. It's been snatched by the Great Machine. These are resources that the Great Machine can either take or the revolutionaries can get back. Right? So these are access cards. Once we look at the hero area, we're going to talk a little bit more about what exactly these are. But in the beginning of the game, each revolutionary has to give up one of their access cards, and now these all count as forfeited access cards that, like, they just cannot use and the Great Machine has in its control. We also have 3 little citizen tokens here that begin the game off of the map because they have been arrested. So that's another important thing to point out. Citizens can be arrested by the Great Machine's servants. They get removed from the board, and that's not great because that's one less person that might help the revolutionaries win the game. So it's in their interest to try and spring people from jail, as you might imagine, right? Okay. So the next thing here for the Great Machine components, I had this outline I was going to try to follow, but now it's covered in coffee. Okay. Anyway, let's keep going with the Great Machine components. We have a directive deck. Now, what this represents is directives that the Great Machine can, like, draw and then publish. Once the Great Machine is able to do these things, draw one and then publish one, these basically serve as a boost for the servants, right? Like this one is called Provoke, and it says each time discontent rises to stage 2, 3, 4, or 5, the master plan advances by 1. So that's not great. The revolutionaries kind of need, as I just explained, to increase discontent, but as they do so, they also increase the machine's master plan. So not good. That is definitely a bonus for the Great Machine. Now, much like these assets, the revolutionaries can also affect these. It's not just that the Great Machine can publish these, the revolutionaries can get rid of them. So that's how directives work, more or less. They are buffs for the Great Machine, and the revolutionaries, they're always bad for the revolutionaries. The revolutionaries want to get rid of these. Okay. So, oh gosh. These cards are all covered in coffee now. To clean that up in a bit. Anyway, moving on. So for the purposes of S and C, what you kind of need are these like cards for the servants of the Great Machine. And you arrange them like this in sort of like numerical order of like how the servants would be moving in the turn. And each card will kind of let you know how these servants are going to prioritize various actions that they might do when they get to a district. Okay, so they let you know what these servants are going to do when, you know, you're not controlling them. The game controls them. And another aspect of that is we have these servant movement cards. So to know where the servants go, you kind of draw one of these cards, and if we were playing, like, Phantasmer would just go straight over to the central square, because that's what that card says. So that's where that servant would go, and then you would look at this card, and you would see, like, what thing is Phantasmer going to do based upon the action priority order over here, right? Okay. So we'll put this card on the bottom now. Those are the movement cards. We also have these raid tokens for the Great Machine. So what these basically mean is if Phantasmer was to move here and a hero ends their movement where Phantasmer is, a raid kind of automatically happens. That hero gets nabbed by Phantasmer. And that will mean something. But usually what this detainment means, there are multiple ways that like the heroes could be detained, but when they are detained, obviously it's not good for the heroes. What's kind of interesting is that the machine can choose, in theory, how they want to punish the heroes when the heroes get detained. So it's not always going to be the same punishment every single time. But again, since this is S&C and the machine has been automated, each servant is going to do the same thing every time they have detained a hero. Okay, so that's what these raid tokens are, more or less. They will remind you that now a raid has happened because a hero has fallen into one of the servant's traps, basically. Okay, so those are the raid tokens. And what we also have are these little blue meeples. These represent special guards, and the purpose of these special guards in S&C is sort of a compromise, because like when the Great Machine is automated, I guess they couldn't really come up with a way to like determine when and where the Great Machine is going to move all these little guards around all these districts. Normally in OVM, the Great Machine is a person, and the Great Machine will earn like these bonds, and we'll get into this currency in a bit, but like in OVM, the Great Machine gets bonds that it could then use to move its servants, have the servants do things, but also move the guards around to like strategically pile up more guards in one district as opposed to others. So that's sort of a game of chess that you're playing there. But instead of moving any guards around in S&C, we just kind of add these special guards. Special guards will get added to districts, generally based upon like conditions that we'll talk about in a bit, but also things that the servants have done. They will add these special guards, and there are special rules for the special guards. Like, basically, special guards are not as resilient, shall we say, as the normal guards. It's easier to knock them down, but they do count as an extra guard for this district. We'll get into what that means in a bit, but those are the special guards that will pop up in districts every now and again to make things more difficult for the heroes, right? Okay, so moving on. Down here, we've got the player area, right? So you've got these cards for the heroes. The cards are going to tell you everything you need to know about each hero, and since this is S&C, things are just a little bit different than usual, right? So each hero is going to start the game with a certain amount of trust, and this is the currency that I was talking about earlier. The machine uses bonds, but the heroes use trust. They have to spend this trust in order to do things. So like, for example, if we start with Kulam, he starts with 4 trust, and we want him to move to the central district over here, he's going to have to pay 4 trust to get there, because he has to pay 2 trust for each district that he exits on the way to a new district. And this kind of means like, yeah, Kulam can move to the central square, but he's not really going to be able to do much of anything once he gets there, because he's already spent all of his trust. So he can get there. He can't really do any other actions other than like there is this free action that heroes can do called gain trust. That would be the only thing he could do. He would get 1 trust back, and that would kind of be his turn, right? So the heroes have trust, and they spend that trust to do things, is what that means more or less. Now, when you look at the hero cards, first of all, for S&C, we kind of need these extra tokens that uniquely identify each of the heroes. So this way we know basically when the servants start moving around, there are like these tracking cards that will have these symbols on them. So we need to know which hero each of these symbols represents in terms of like these, these servant movement cards. Okay, so yeah, there's that. Oh gosh. Just dropping stuff all over the place. This is definitely not working out how I thought it would in my head. But that's YouTube for you. Anyway, so we have a unique identifier for each of these heroes. That's an S&C thing. Normally, though, what you have is like a little portrait of the hero so that you know which model they are. They've got a name, of course. They all even have titles, like Kula McDouglas is the Fowler, Sylvia Wu is the Artificer, Mustafa Azakiwe is the Physician. That's kind of cool. But in terms of gameplay type stuff, each hero in the upper right corner has an initiative number. Basically, the lower that number is, the higher their initiative is, the speedier they are. So this is how you know what the turn order is going to be for the heroes. So if you're playing S&C solo by yourself, you probably should arrange them left to right, kind of like these servant cards are arranged to let you know who's going to go first and who's going last, right? So that's initiative. There's also a special skill that each one of these heroes has. So for example, Kulam has lightning fast reflexes. So what this means is, like, he could spend 2 trust to go here, and if he still has 2 trust to do another thing, he could do that thing for 2 trust, but he could also do an additional action, which would usually be gain trust, right? So he could, like, spend 2 trust to do, like, incitement, because, broadly speaking, the heroes have to pay, like, X amount of trust due to how many guards are in the district. And now we're getting to the point of why it's useful to know how many guards are in a district. And it's also why the heroes want to attack these guards and knock them out to remove them and make it easier to do stuff in a district. So we know several things the heroes can do, right? They can move, they can knock out guards. There's a thing they can do called incitement, which is basically them just doing a little speech or going around and talking to people about some of the bad stuff that's going down. And as long as they pay the requisite amount of trust, we can bump up the discontent meter by 1 for doing a successful incitement, right? So, okay, there's that. Moving on, below the special thing, you also have this little symbol for the district that they start in. So that's kind of what I was talking about. Like, you only have the symbol on the player character cards. So if we look at the district tile here, we can see the little bag of doubloons, I guess. We can see on Kulam's card, that's where he starts the game. So you kind of need to know that. The last thing here is in the lower right corner, there is a maximum amount of trust that they can have. So in the normal OVM type game, the machine can just get as many bonds as it can, right? It doesn't have a limit on the amount of bonds it can hold. It can save them up, do all kinds of crazy stuff in it. Bonds don't really exist in S&C though, but we still have this same cap for how much trust each of the revolutionaries can have. And I guess that's kind of important because if the revolutionaries can't, like, bank that stuff and really hoard it, like, there's always going to be only so much trust each of your revolutionaries can have, and thus there's only so many things each of them can do. So for example, if we look at Mustafa, the physician over here, it's kind of clear he is the slowest one here. He's got the lowest initiative, shall we say. It's 9, so he's kind of the slowest, and he also only can have a maximum of 6 trust. So that's kind of not a problem for him because of his special ability, but we'll get into that in a bit. The other thing we should talk about for the revolutionaries is the access cards. Now, we were talking about these a little bit earlier as opposed to, with regards to the forfeited access cards. So each revolutionary starts the game with 8 access cards as opposed to 9, and this kind of means there's always one district that each revolutionary cannot move to. This is where the coordination bit comes in handy if you're playing with other people. You don't want everybody to give up access to like the same district. That means there's one district that the revolutionaries just cannot go to at the beginning of the game, right? But the thing about the access cards, this is another interesting aspect of the game, I think, is that like the way the game flows more or less is there's an opening phase and then there's an access phase. And all the access phase is just the revolutionaries looking at the access cards that they have and then deciding where they want that hero to be for that turn. Right? So, and you do this every time. So like, for example, even if we don't want Coulomb here to not move anywhere, we still have to put down the commerce district in the access phase. Right? Because this is telling us he wants to stay there. And this is also important because if he loses this access card for whatever reason, and he's still in the commerce district, he's going to be forced to move next turn in the next access phase. Because, of course, he no longer has this card to put down in the access phase. It's one less choice that he has for where he can go. So yeah, in the access phase, the heroes all put down an access card and they sort of plan their initial route before anything is even allowed to happen. After that occurs, then the Great Machine can do stuff, right? And we're going to get into that in a bit. I'm just going to talk about some of this other stuff that I haven't talked about over here yet, right? So for the revolutionaries, we also have these little riot tokens. Now there's 3 of them because, like I said, we need 3 riots for the revolutionaries to win. And, like I already kind of said, a successful riot greatly hinges upon how many guards there are in the district versus how many citizens in the district the revolutionaries know that they can rely on. Now, in theory, Coulomb could just do a riot right off the get-go, but you don't put that token down until you know the riot has been successful. It's not a great idea to start a riot in the beginning of the game when you have no idea how many, if any of these citizens are going to be on your side. In fact, at the beginning of the game, you have no one on your side. So that riot will just immediately fail. When the revolutionaries attempt a riot and it fails, as you can imagine, that's not good for them. That's bad for them, but it's good for the machine, okay? So that's what the riot tokens are. If you get a successful riot, you plop that down in that district, and that is one of 3 riots that the revolutionaries need to win. Yeah, I already missed it. Okay, so moving on. There's also a couple of die. So this game only has 2 die, right? We have an escape die and we have an assault die. So the assault die is for, well, assaulting these guards, which is something that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Now, the way that works is actually kind of interesting because basically for most of the revolutionaries, what they're going to have to do is sort of make a bet. with regards to how difficult it's going to be to knock out that guard. So once again, you're using trust, you're spending that to do an action. If Coulomb wanted to try and take down a guard in the Commerce District as like his first action, then he would say, all right, I'll put down all my trust, 4 trust, and then we're going to roll the die to see what happens. Now, if it comes up as 2 coins, that's less than what he paid. So that means, yes, the attack is a success. That's probably why you'd want to plop down 4 coins, because that's sort of the maximum amount that you can spend, and you're kind of sort of guaranteeing that this attack is going to be a success, except it might not be, because there is a shield icon on this die that always means your attack is a failure, no matter how much trust you spent on this attack. So you're always going to be spending somewhere between 2 and 4 trust to attack a guard. Okay, so there's that. This is the assault die. There's also the escape die, and the reason the escape die is a thing is because, like, as I was saying earlier, if we want Coulomb to move somewhere and he only has 4 trust, if he moves more than 2 districts away from where he started, he is now out of trust. And remember the access phase. If we said at the beginning, like, he's going to move to the industrial district and we think we've got enough trust to do that, remember, the districts can move. Now we see why it's important that the districts can move, right? The Great Machine can totally mess with the heroes by moving districts during its phase. So once the heroes can actually move during their phase, maybe the industrial district is way the hell up there, and now Coulomb has to spend more trust than he actually has to try and get up there. So when the heroes are still moving, but they don't have trust to, like, spend for that move, every time they move out of a district when they have 0 trust, they have to roll the escape die. So if you get the little person running away, you're good. You evaded the guards. If, however, you get the little handcuffs, well, that means you got detained. That means you got detained by the guards. And again, since this is S&C, what that kind of means is, like, there's one thing that will always happen when you get detained by the guards. In a similar fashion to, there is always one thing that happens when it's one of the 3 servants that ends up detaining you. Okay, so that's the escape die. We already talked about trust. This is the trust pile over here that the revolutionaries can get for, doing things. Basically, you get trust depending upon how many citizens you have in the district at the start of your turn. If people are not hostile to you, you can get trust from the people in that district. Okay? That's how they gain trust. There's only 2 more things that we haven't talked about yet. The city event deck over here is actually another central component to the game. So basically, you build this deck at the beginning of the game, and you're always going to have one event called the countdown, which is always going to be the last event, no matter what kind of mode you're playing. But beyond that, there's a bunch of other events that are going to be kind of randomized because you, like, shuffle the deck and there's X amount of cards that you take out of it. And one of these city events will be drawn at the beginning of each round. So the city event is going to affect, like, everything that happens in that round for the revolutionaries and for the Great Machine. Now in SNC, the events mostly have something to do with like what the revolutionaries need to be doing. But it also affects the Great Machine because there is this part on the bottom. Basically, it's a bunch of conditions, right? That's how it works in S&C anyway. There's a bunch of conditions that need to be true. So there's a closing phase, right, at the end of the turn where you check to see if these conditions are true. If they are, or if they aren't, things will happen. So we should be keeping that in mind. There's always going to be a city event, and it's always going to have some sort of an effect on that particular turn. And now, as you can imagine, the countdown is the final thing that happens towards the end of the game after all the city events have already occurred, right? So that's how that more or less works. And the last thing to talk about would be we've got some tokens over here that will help us determine a random district. So when you're doing SNC, and of course, like the Great Machine is not controlled by a person, if it's gonna do something in a random district, you have these 9 tokens over here that each represent one of the districts. So we can flip them over and we see one of those little symbols that I was talking about. Once again, you have a symbol to represent a district. So they all have names, and that's cool, but you want to know what the symbols are to understand which district is which, right? So we're gonna shuffle these up a little bit so I don't know which one is which. You've got 9 of them. Each one represents one of the districts. Okay, so we have talked about all of the components on the board and more or less what they're for, how they work, all that jazz. I spilled coffee all over the place. Isn't that great? Anyway. So yeah, talking about all that stuff is cool. Let's do like 3 rounds now so that y'all can get like a decent idea of like how this more or less plays out, right? Okay, so like I said, in every turn is going to go a certain way. We're going to have certain phases here, and you always start with the opening phase. In the opening phase, 2 things always happen. We draw a city event card, so now we've got blend in with the crowd. That's our current city event. We also determine how much trust the revolutionaries are going to get for that turn. When the game starts, we know that each revolutionary is going to get 4 trust because they all pretty much always start in a minor district. All the minor districts, as you might be able to see, they all have 4 citizens in them. So you get 1 trust per citizen all the time, unless there is actually another class of citizen that can never be won over, and I might as well mention that now. Some of these citizens may be traitors. They are people that are very invested in the Great Machine and will never resist the Great Machine or its plans ever. So what's interesting is like when these are unrevealed, you get 4 trust for having 4 of these tokens. If you do reveal them and one of them is a traitor, now you don't get any trust from that traitor. And the traitors will count when it comes to a riot. Traitors get added to the guards. Okay, so that's how that works. Now, once we've done the opening phase, we draw this and we have our trust. First thing you typically do is look at the city event card and see what that's going to mean for this turn. Now, another interesting thing to point out is it's not always necessary to try and do the things on the card. Which is kind of interesting, right? Like, sure, you have this city event that means here are some things that you should do. If you do these things, it will be good for you. If these other things happen, that will be bad for you. So you would think every time you should try to just listen to the card, go with the card, and just do what it says. Maybe. And this is especially true in OVM, right? That's what's kind of interesting about OVM. Like, when you're playing against another person, the card kind of gives a hint away as to what they might be doing. Okay? Now, you're not playing against another person in solo and or competitive, but you still don't have to follow all this stuff that you see on the city event, right? There could be more pressing things that you want to do. And so you might ignore some of these things on this card to try and get that stuff done. So sometimes you kind of have to take an L in order to get some more important stuff done. Now, what I mean here is the way these cards in SNC more or less work is the top thing is going to be a security protocol. And what that basically means is here's a thing that the heroes kind of have to do in order to avoid the security protocol enacting. And all the security protocol is basically is these special guards, right? If the heroes don't meet the requirements for the security protocol, then a special guard at the end of the turn in the closing phase is going to be plopped down in a random district somewhere. So that's the security protocol. If you do that, there's also a breakthrough condition here. The breakthrough condition is kind of a bonus, right? So if the security protocol is true, no extra special guard. That's awesome. Then there's also a breakthrough condition. If you can do this too, in addition to the security protocol, there is a bonus that the revolutionaries get if both of those things are true at the end of the round. So for example, here we've got the heroes are going to need to collectively discard 2 trusts. And now maybe you're seeing what I'm talking about here, right? Like, if we do this, which we could, if we do this though, that's 2 less trust overall that our heroes are going to have. And each of them only has 4 at the beginning of the game. So you could do it in such a way where you have 2 heroes give up 1 trust each. So there are 2 heroes to start with 3 as opposed to 4. But again, you don't have to do that. You could decide, fine, we'll take a special guard, whatever. At least then we don't have too little trust to actually do the things that we want to do. But if you do this and no hero is detained in a minor district, which that's not exactly a thing that you can control. It will be nice if this is true at the end, along with the security protocol, because now you get to increase discontent by 1. All right? That's just a thing that happens if those are both true in the closing phase. The final thing to pay attention to is the master plan does not advance if. So this is yet another condition that we check in the closing phase. It says no hero chose an access card to a major district. Okay, so this is why it's important to look at this in the beginning to try and figure out, like, okay, what things should we be focusing on? Like, is it more important to not advance the master plan because it is advanced a little bit too much and we're going to have to try and make sure that this isn't true? Or can we ignore some of this stuff and just try to do other things and then, like, we get an extra guard, and maybe the master plan advances. And we just don't care about it because it's the beginning of the game, right? So those are choices that you can make in the opening phase here. Now, you move to the access phase, like I was talking about earlier. Each hero, like I said, lays down a card for where you want to put them. And now that we know what the city event is, we have a little bit more information as to maybe what we should be having the heroes do. Because let's assume we want to try and do all the things on the card this time, right? So for this turn, we're going to try to do all the things on the card, and we're going to show how that more or less works. So first of all, we're going to have to collectively throw out some trust. Although really, we're going to think about that later when we try to figure out who is going to be going where and how much trust they might need to do the things we would like them to do, right? So it also tells us no hero was detained in a minor district. Now I said we can't control this, but I guess we can if we move everybody to a major district. We can then guarantee that both of these initial conditions will be true. Now we might see how these events tend to work out. There's like a contradiction in these conditions if you read it carefully enough, right? Because remember, the master plan does not advance if no hero chose an access card to a major district. You see? Right? So if we want to guarantee that both of these things are true, the master plan is going to advance if we move everybody to a major district. So we get a little bonus by increasing discontent by 1, but the master plan does too. So there's that. You kind of do have to choose, like, do we want this bonus or do we want to stop the master plan from advancing? Now, I would say early on, it's probably best to not care so much about the master plan because it's only at 1. By the way, I should also mention, there are ways to tune the difficulty here, and this is on easy mode. Okay, we've put it to easy, which kind of means that, like, first of all, the master plan starts at 1. Discontent is always there anyway, but we also get several bonuses. There's like 3 benefits that the revolutionaries will get. So, for example, the first and most important one that happens throughout numerous difficulties is if we can manage to do a successful riot, that knocks the master plan back by 1. So as far as it may get, we may be able to knock it back by doing successful riots. So there's that. There's also going to be another benefit insofar as, like, in the movement cards for the servants, we have some what we call maintenance cards that might pop up, and this will mean that that servant can't do anything for that round. That servant is just spending all of its time fixing some kind of mechanical issue or something like that, and it can't do anything. So, as you can see, if you would want the game to be more difficult, you could just throw those all out, so that never happens. But when it's on easy, they are not only in the deck, but they stay there. So that's always going to be a possibility throughout the game, that you got at least maybe one servant that is just stuck and can't do anything. All right, so the third benefit that we get in easy mode is, once again, looking back at the servant movement deck, there is a special guard patrol card where the servant is not only on patrol, meaning they don't move anywhere, They're kind of stuck in place. They do no movement. But the thing that they do, instead of looking at their actions on their sort of card sheet over here, they put down a special guard in their district. Now, in easy mode, we kind of ignore the special guard part. They don't do that. This is just another patrol card. So there's that. So that will slightly reduce the amount of special guards that are going to be popping up here, basically. So those are the benefits that we get. We did opening phase. Now we need to do access phase. We need to do that now. Now that we have determined it might be best to have everybody go to a major district. Okay? And the central square does count as a major district. So what we might be able to do is have Coulomb go to the Grand Citadel. The dock here goes to the control nexus. And no. Here's how we'll do this. Okay. Coulomb going to the Grand Citadel. You know, let's. So we find the Grand Citadel card for Coulomb. Does he have that? Yes, that's a place he can go. Boom. That's where he's going. It is now locked. He's going there. And for Sylvia, we're going to have her go to the Tower of Law. Okay. And then we're going to have the dock go to the central square. That is also a major district. So now they're all going to major districts. And like I said, that's going to mean the master plan will advance by 1. But provided we also collectively toss out 2 trusts, that's a thing that we can do. So now we know that Sylvia can definitely afford to do that. She can get rid of 1 trust, at least. But if we consider that, like, the doctor is going to need 2, 4 to get to the central square. He's going to need 4. Coulomb is going to need 2 and then 4. But yeah, he would move 2 to Velvet and then 4 here. So both of these guys are going to need 4. So that kind of means, yeah, we're going to take 2 from Sylvia. So she starts with 2. That's how that works. Okay. So we have collectively discarded the 2 trust already. We've basically guaranteed security protocol will not be tripped, and we're going to get this bonus. Cool. So now you can see, yeah, with this game, it's about planning. Even if you're doing solo mode, you kind of can't win the game if you're not trying to plan ahead a little bit, right? There's some elements of chess here. You got to try to set things up well ahead of time. Okay, so that's the access phase. Now we go to the Great Machine phase. The Great Machine can now do things. And like I said, this will happen more or less with these servant movement cards. We have these servant action cards arranged in this way to know the turn order here. So we're going to draw the top movement card and put that right next to Phantasmer. He is stuck there. He is doing nothing for this turn. So Phantasmer, at the very least, is here in Grand Citadel. He does not pose a threat, though, because he is stuck doing maintenance. Okay, so there's that. What's the next card? Okay, so the Judge Mentor, this big guy with a top hat, he gets a directional card that says to go left. Now, When the servants get something like that and they can't go that way, the rules state like you just keep changing the directions until they can move somewhere clockwise. So we can't go left, but clockwise, he can go to the control nexus, and thankfully, I didn't decide to send anybody to the control nexus. Because I think, as I may have mentioned earlier, if a hero ends their turn in the same space as like an active servant, that's them getting detained. A raid happens. That's not good, because it even kind of means that like the servant can do an extra thing now. They can do 2 different actions when there's a raid token. Okay. So that's what Judge Mentor does. And since he is not like stuck, now that he's moved there, we can also look at his action card to see what sort of action he would take. Now, early on, you usually ignore pretty much everything other than the district action, right? Because there's 3 actions in different orders that each of the servants will usually take. You either repair all the guards, you arrest an active famous citizen, an active one that has been revealed as well, or you take a district action. Okay, so since Judge Mentor is in the control nexus, what that means is we are going to swap a random district. Something is going to get moved now because Judge Mentor is going to do that. All right, that's his action for now. So here's where the random tokens are going to come into play here. We're going to select 2 random tokens. So we've got the Commerce District and what is that? The Tower of Law. Okay. So these 2 districts are getting swapped. And that's not great. That's going to mess up like our plans here for 2 of our heroes. Tower of Law ends up down here. Commerce District ends way up there. And that was the swap that just happened. So now we can see why this is not great, right? Because remember, Sylvia was going here, and we thought she could do that because it was right next door, but now it no longer is. Coulomb is going to the Grand Citadel. He can still pay the same amount of trust to get there, so he's okay. Sylvia, she might get detained. Because remember, she only has 2 trust, since we had to discard them, and maybe she's going to be getting detained in one of the minor districts when she runs out of trust. So that means she pays 2, and then she'd probably have to roll the escape die twice to get all the way down to the Tower of Law here. All right, so let's draw 1 more servant card for Lex and see what she does. We get a tracking card, so this is what I was talking about. Lex is going to move straight to where the doctor is because he's the one with the little mechanical bird icon. Okay, so Lex goes down there to where the doctor is, and then we try to determine what action she's going to take. And Lex always takes a district action first. Although, like I said, there's nobody to arrest and there's no guards to repair. So all of these servants are going to be doing district actions until there are people to arrest and guards to repair, basically. Now, when the servants are in minor districts, generally the only thing that can be done there for district action-wise is they move the progress marker once counterclockwise. So it starts in the 0 phase, and then we move that left. And I guess we do this because the idea is if this progress marker eventually gets around here and lands precisely where the discontent track is, master plan goes up by 1. So that's where the progress marker is for now because Lex moved that forward in the Velvet District. Okay, so all right. And I guess for now, that is all that the Great Machine does. That's the Great Machine phase. All 3 servants have moved and done things. So now the heroes can go. And again, this is kind of why this game is interesting, right? Like the heroes, we can already see, now that like the heroes have to call out where they're going before the Great Machine can do stuff. And this can cause issues when like stuff happens before you can go there. Your plans can get interrupted, shall we say. So let's start with Coulomb. As I said, he's probably fine because he's still moving to the Grand Citadel. And yes, it's going to take all of his trust to get there, but since Phantasmer is in maintenance mode, Coulomb will be fine. He will not get detained. He just needs to toss all of his trust to move 1, 2 spaces and be in the Grand Citadel. Okay? So, we toss out his trust, but as I said earlier, gain trust is one action that we could do. So he can do this for free. And if Coulomb had more trust, he could do other stuff. Because, again, remember, his ability is he can potentially do 2 different things in 1 turn. But since he's got no trust, he can just do gain trust and get himself 1 trust. So that was Coulomb. That's his little turn done for now. Okay, so now we've got to go by initiative to Sylvia. She's the one that's in a bit of a pickle, right? So she can move here with the 2 trusts that she has. So she discards that. Now she has no trust, but she has to get to the Tower of Law. So every time she exits a district, we're going to have to roll the escape die to see if she can manage to escape. So, going to move her here and roll this little die to see if she's good. She's not. She got detained. And she got detained in a minor district, no less. So that means we don't get our bonus. And it kind of looks like the master plan advances at the same time. So that's not great. All of our plans have gone awry a little bit. Okay, so let me see here. I need to remind myself very quickly what happens. Okay, if heroes are detained during movement, it's just no access. Okay. All right, and that's how detainment works, more or less. There are 3 things that could happen. There's no access, there's no trust, or there's a special thing that Phantasmer does. The hero can still do stuff, but they count as detained, and Phantasmer will advance the progress marker by 3 spaces. Okay, so those are the 3 things that could happen. But for Sylvia, what has happened is she has lost her access card to the Tower of Law. That is now a forfeited access card. Okay, so that's what happened to her. Now, we go to the dock. He has 4 trust to get to the central square. He can go through the industrial district for 2 and then leave the industrial district for another 2 and be at the central square. Okay, So we can ditch his trust, and we can give him 1 trust back, or alternatively, we could have him do his special move, which is basically medical inspection. As an action, you may move 1 famous citizen from a connected district to your district and identify them. This costs you no trust. I don't know if I really want to do that, though. But hey, this is this is not the full game. I'm just trying to show y'all some examples here. So why the hell not? We'll just do it anyway. We'll just grab a citizen from one of the adjacent districts, and I guess this is what makes up for the fact that the doc is kind of slow and he can't have an awful lot of trust. He can do this somewhat powerful thing for free. He can just grab somebody from a district, move him to his, and immediately identify them. So now we know we've got an industrialist here, and we also have 5 citizens in the central square. That means next turn, the doc is getting 5 trust at the beginning of the turn, because 5 citizens, and that's not going to be going above his cap. He gets all 5 of that trust. Cool. So that is the doctor. That's what happened with him. The revolutionary phase is now over. So now we move on to that closing phase I was talking about. Now we check to see whether those conditions are true or not. And we already kind of know, yeah, we sort of failed on everything here. All because Sylvia here got busted in the industrial district. She lost her access, and someone was detained in a minor district. So discontent does not advance by 1. And since we did have heroes that chose access cards for major districts, Coulom's in the Grand Citadel, the doctor is over here in the central square. Master plan goes forward by 1. So it goes from stage 1 to stage 2. Okay. And that's what happens. So we just do that all over again a couple times, and we'll see a little bit more about how this game is played, right? So next phase, next opening phase, the next event is fomenting tension. So once again, we've got 3 parts to this card. The top part is the, and that reminds me, since we failed all the things last time, well, no, we didn't trip the security protocol. We collectively got rid of 2 trusts, so we don't need to put down a special guard in a random district. But if we had not done that, it would be special guard time. So, okay, I don't need to rewind to do that. We did those 2 trusts. This time, a hero must be in either the Grand Citadel or the Tower of Law. Okay, so that's the security protocol. Coulom is already there in the Grand Citadel, so we could just have him stay there, but let's read some more to see what else is going on here, right? So for the breakthrough condition, it says there are heroes both in the Grand Citadel and Tower of Law. So if we put people in both places, we can get a bonus thing, which is one of these heroes takes the special action of their district for free. That is nice. Because for, let's see, Tower of Law, for both the Tower of Law and the Grand Citadel district, okay, and it specifically says special action B. So there are 2 special actions that heroes could do for the most part in the major districts. We get to do be for free for one of these people. And in the Grand Citadel, we can bust somebody out of jail and put them back. So that's cool. In the Tower of Law, we can get somebody's access card back. So with that in mind, let's put these back because we're not in the access phase just yet. All right. So there's that. We've got the Grand Citadel and the Tower of Law here. We can place people in those, and that might mean a good thing will happen. We shall see. Final condition here, the master plan does not advance if at round's end discontent is higher than it was at the beginning of this round. Okay. So all that means is we got to bump up discontent at least once before the end of the round. As long as somebody does an incitement somewhere, we're good. And the doc can totally do that because I will show y'all what's special about the central square. I could show y'all that. Now, although the pickle here is what we might need to do is have Sylvia go to the central square, and we might want the doc to go to the Tower of Law. Because remember, Sylvia cannot go to the Tower of Law now. She got that access card revoked. Right? So now we're in the access phase, and I kind of think we've already figured out what we might want to do for this phase. And I guess this is me once again saying, yeah, let's do the things that the card says, because we'll get some good bonuses for that. And we might as well bump up discontent, because that's always a good thing to do early on. And if we keep the doc in the central square, and he's good there, we can get some serious discontent going. Okay? So I kind of think there's no reason to not do all of these things. It will be very beneficial for us, I think, if this all works out. So let's see here. So with Coulomb, as I was saying earlier, if we want him to stay where he is, we still need to put down the Grand Citadel card. Okay? So that means he can stay there, and we have to sort of bank on none of those servants moving into the Grand Citadel to sort of pop him and screw us over here a little bit. Okay? But, all right. Sylvia, we're going to see, she should have the central square. We can have her go there. She can go there for 2 trust. The doc... Oh, right. We also in the opening phase, we need to distribute trust. I forgot about that. And yeah, Coulomb is in the Grand Citadel. He is only going to get 1 trust. So he kind of does need to stay there. He kind of needs to stay there. Because again, as I said, with these major districts, there's only 1 citizen. And now we see the downside of being here. Because at the beginning of the turn, Coulomb is pretty trust poor, shall we say. He can't do that much right now. So it's probably wise to have him stay there so he can spend 2 trust to do a thing. Okay, so next thing would be what? Right. We're getting, Sylvia gets 4. And the doc, he gets 5 for being on the central square. All right, we all have our trust now. And the doctor is going to the Tower of Law. So that is the access phase and the opening phase done. Now we move on to the Great Machine phase. So we take these movement cards and put them in the discard pile down here, and then we draw some new movement cards to see what... Okay, Phantasmer is in maintenance mode yet again. He once again... Something must be really broken with Phantasmer, because he is once again stuck in the Grand Citadel, not able to do anything. Okay, so we just ignore Phantasmer for now and go on to Judge Mentor, who goes to the right. So, and it's even letting us know which exit he would use. So since the tile is oriented this way, he's going to go to the right through this exit, putting him in the Commerce District, which is fine, because that means he's way out in the middle of nowhere and he's not going to be detaining anybody, but he is going to do a district action there, which means we bump up the progress marker once again. Okay, so that happens. Now for Lex, she also draws a maintenance, meaning she is also just stuck there doing nothing. Yeah, I guess the heroes are pretty good this time around. Nothing's going to get in their way. Cool. So, now that the Great Machine has done all of the things, we can go to the hero phase. Coulomb is in the Grand Citadel, and we can choose to have him do something. And you know, I think that, let's see, in the Grand Citadel, yeah, return one arrested citizen. Okay. This is actually kind of cool, because I think what this means is we can get 2 citizens back for in one turn, basically. And actually, since it's Coulomb, we can spend his 2 trust to do that, to do the special action, and we can get 1 citizen back that we can just put anywhere. What does it say again? Return 1 arrested citizen to a district of your choice as identified. So the identification does happen. We might as well, I kind of think, put this citizen here in the science district to make up for the fact that we yanked 1 from there. Okay, so that happens, and since it's Coulomb, he gets to do an extra thing, which is gain trust. He can get 1 trust back. So that's cool. That was Coulomb. Next, we have Sylvia. Sylvia is going to be moving to the central square, so that's going to take her 2 trust to get there. Okay. Once she is there, she can once again spend 2 trust to do the incitement action. And now we're going to see what is special about the central square. She spends 2 trust because there are 2 guards there, and we can have her do the incitement action, which, as I said earlier, she's just talking to people, doing a speech, just spreading the word about why things aren't great and people should be concerned, right? Now, normally, that automatically bumps discontent up by 1. But since we're in the central square and it's effectively a park where there's a whole bunch of people all over the place, there's a rule that, like, if the revolutionaries do incitement here, they can just take the grand total of citizens in the park and subtract that by the amount of guards, and that's how much discontent they can bump things up by. So since we have 5 here, minus 2, that's 3. Hey, we can bump the discontent up 3 slots. Putting that in the first phase, and we're almost to the second phase already, just by Sylvia just talking about stuff in the park there, right? So that's pretty cool. Okay. So Sylvia did that, and we've also definitely avoided the master plan advancing because we have bumped up discontent quite a bit. So finally we have the good old Doc here. He is going to need to spend 4 trust to get down to the Tower of Law, meaning once he is there, he won't really be able to do anything other than like his special action, or he could just do gain trust to get another trust coin back. And that might be a good idea since we know that like he could do a special action here for free, but we might have him do that here for free because Coulomb already sprung a citizen, and that's cool, but let me just double check here. What's the B for the Tower of Law? Is any one hero retrieves a forfeited access card. Now that would be cool because we could get Sylvia her Tower of Law card back. Although, now that I think about it, I'm sorry. He can do this. He doesn't have enough trust to do this, but according to this card, he can do it for free at the end of the turn. So, what we could do for his action is just gain trust. He'll get 1 trust back, and at the end of the turn, he also does the special action for free. So, yeah, this turn is actually working out kind of good for the revolutionaries. Nobody got detained. We're all doing the stuff that we kind of wanted to do to help things, right? Okay, so we're done with the hero phase. Now we move straight on to the closing phase, which is just us sort of checking out these conditions to see what happened, right? So first of all, we're going to take these cards and put them back. Okay. Now we're also going to check, did we do the security protocol? Yes, that's good. We don't get an extra guard. Breakthrough. There are heroes both in the Grand Citadel and Tower of Law. Since that's true, we now get this bonus, which is one of these heroes takes a special action B of their district for free. Okay, cool. So, like I talked about, probably what we want to do is have the Doc take advantage of this, and for free, he can snatch this Tower of Law card and give it back to Sylvia. It goes back to any one of the heroes. It doesn't matter that Sylvia is actually in the central square right now. Doc got her card back. So, that's pretty cool. And Master Plan does not advance if at the round's end discontent is higher, which it is. Sylvia bumped it up in the central square. So, hey, we actually did all the things on the card, and it worked out pretty good for us. We bumped up discontent quite a bit, and we got some resources back from the Great Machine. Okay, cool. So now let's do one final round here to just keep going with this trial and let y'all know how this works more or less, right? One more round. Okay, so we draw one more city event card, and we're going to see that this one is a little bit different than the other two, because of course they're all a little bit different. They all also have titles too, to give you a general vibe for what's going on here. So like, the first one was called Blend In With the Crowd. The second one was called Fomenting Tension. And this one is called Tug of Law and Tug of War. So now we have some extra stuff here. We've got the first 3 things as normal, but we also have a little bonus for the heroes at the bottom. Like, this is just a thing that will positively affect the heroes for this whole turn, no matter what. All right, so let's go through this for the last time here. Security protocol is once again people need to collectively abandon 2 trusts. So let's distribute trust for everybody. Once again, Coulomb is only going to get 1 trust because he's in the Grand Citadel. He's the poor guy here now, I guess. That applies to the good doctor as well. He is only going to get 1 since he is in the Tower of Law. Sylvia, I might as well just say right now, Sylvia has this special ability where she can get an additional 3 trust for being in a major district. So she's sort of the character that you want, ideally, to be moving to the major districts, because she doesn't get this nerf of like not getting enough trust by being in one of these major districts. But for the moment, she is in the central square, so she gets 5, and each of our revolutionaries does not have that much trust right now. But since we know how much trust they do have, we can try to plan out what we might want to do here, right? So let's keep reading what more of these things are. We know, first of all, security protocol, we have to get rid of 2. We might want to do that thing where we ignore that and just take the L and get an extra guard, because we're already pretty low here in trust for, you know, our heroes. We might say Sylvia does it and then she goes down to 3, but still, I think I don't like getting rid of excess trust when we have almost none to begin with. The next condition, though, is all heroes are in minor districts. Okay, so to do that, everyone would have to move at least once to a neighboring minor district. But if we did that, we could break 1 guard in a random district and increase discontent by 1, which means it goes to the next phase, and we have now unlocked 2 citizen classes for any potential riots that we want to do, right? Okay. So, but since this is our final turn, I'm going to try to have the revolutionaries do actions that we haven't seen them do yet. So we're going to try to do some, we've already done Incite, and we've done some special district actions, but what we might want to also do is attack a guard and do some identification of citizens. Those are also things that you can do. Is there something, well, start a riot is the only other one. We could also move famous citizens, though, I suppose. So we've already seen the famous citizens get moved, though, thanks to the docs rule. But for the most part, yeah, we want to attack a guard and we want to identify some people. We're going to make that our goal. We're taking an L on the security protocol. Oh, but now, okay. It would be great to get this bonus. I kind of want this bonus, but the only way we can get it is if we collectively discard 2 trust. So, let's see. If we have the doc go to the industrial district, that costs him 2 trust, and he could just gain trust while he's there and still have 2 trust at the end of the turn. Sylvia, we could have her go to the, if she goes to the science district and does an identify, that's going to cost 4 trust. If Coulomb was to move anywhere, that would be all of his trust, and he wouldn't be able to do anything. All right, but we don't need to plan for the long game here, since this is, I need to keep reminding myself, this is just a tutorial. So we're just going to do some stuff, and we're not going to worry that much about the bonuses here, but we're going to read the rest of this card just for the sake of it, right? The master plan does not advance if, during this round, the heroes discard or cancel a directive, or the Great Machine has no directives at the round's end. So, to do that, and now we can see a contradiction here. It's saying we get a bonus if all heroes are in minor districts, but we also know we can only cancel directives if we are in either the Tower of Law or the Grand Citadel. Those are the only places you can really cancel directives. And we have no idea if a directive is going to get drawn and or published, because we have no idea how the servants are going to be moving here, right? Now, the little bonus we get at the bottom here says the heroes may take the Tower of Law and Grand Citadel special actions in any of these districts and in the control nexus. Which means that we can cancel directives from the control nexus as well, in addition to the Grand Citadel and Tower of Law. So those are all things to take into account, I suppose. But for the purposes of showing you all the hero actions, we're going to do things completely differently from what this event is trying to suggest, right? So I kind of think it makes the most sense to have Coulomb stay in the Grand Citadel and bank on not getting detained so that he can try to break a guard there. We can also, let's see, Sylvia can move to the art district and do an identify there. And the doctor, we might have him move to the industrial district and do his special move to once again move a citizen and identify in the same breath for free. Okay, so here's the access phase. We're going to do that. We're going to once again keep Coulomb in the Grand Citadel. He's not moving anywhere. Sylvia is going to go to, I think, yeah, I said the art district. Does she have the art district card? Yes, she does. Cool. Since she has that card, she can go there. And the good doctor will move to the industrial district. If he has that card, he does. Cool. So this will work out exactly how I planned, more or less. Provided the Great Machine doesn't screw us yet again. Okay. So what's also kind of neat about the S&C mode is that the rules just straight up state that you can look through the discard pile of the servant movement deck, and that can tell you some things, right? We can look at this and see, all right, we're not getting any more maintenance cards. Those already all popped up. So that can tell us all the servants are going to be doing something. They aren't going to be moving left or right because we already pulled those. And they also aren't going to be tracking the doctor. So we don't have to be concerned about him having someone move straight to where he is. So I guess that's kind of like counting cards in blackjack. We know what's already been drawn, and since we know that, we can kind of determine what the servants might do based upon what we know they aren't going to do, if that makes any sense, right? Anyway, we're just going to do this and see what happens. First of all, we draw for Phantasmer. He goes down, so that means he's going to be in the Velvet District. That is where he goes. That means he does a district action there, and we move the progress marker once again. So that's what happens with Phantasmer. What does Judge Mentor do? Judge Mentor does patrol. And it's the guard patrol too, but since we're on easy, we do not produce an extra special guard here. We haven't seen any special guards just yet, actually. Although we're going to see one since we haven't done the special thing here, right? So anyway, the security protocol. Final thing, yeah, Phantasmer stays there. He can still do his action though, so he's going to be doing a district action, and progress marker moves forward once again. Now for Lex, she goes straight to Sylvia. She goes straight to the central square. And that's not great because the district action in the central square is actually kind of similar for the servants as it is for the revolutionaries. So basically, Lex is going to get to move the progress marker 3 spaces because once again it's amount of citizens minus guards. She can move it 3 spaces. Now, according to the rules, we've moved it 1, 2. It's now at the discontent marker. If there are still unspent moves, we actually move it from here to the 0 phase. It goes back to the beginning, more or less. So we dodged the bullet there. The master plan did not advance. It went back to 0. Cool. All right. Let's see. So that's what Lex did. Now we can go through the hero phase one last time and see some of these things that we haven't done just yet. Okay. So we're going to start with Coulomb. He's going to spend 2 trust to do an attack. That's probably going to fail. Now, unfortunately, with the way his rules are written, we can't do gain trust first. That has to be the second of his actions if he's going to do a bonus action. So to do an attack, he has to put down just 2 trust. And we're going to roll the die to see if we can luck out and get 2 coins. We got 3, so that means the attack fails. Coulomb wasted his trust trying to take out a guard, but he failed. Oh well, we tried. We tried. All right, but since it's Coulomb, he gets to also do gain trust to get 1 trust back. Okay, so now we go to Sylvia. She's going to the art district. She pays 2 trust to get there, so now she has 3 trust. And thankfully, we told her to move rather than stay there because now she's not getting detained by Lex. That's cool. All right. So, once she's here, now that she has 3 trust left, we can use 2 trust to do the identify thing. So the way this works, you only need to spend as much trust as there are guards in the district. Once we have spent that trust, yeah, I'm just double checking here. 1 trust per guard for each citizen you identify. Secretly peek at a citizen and put it back so that the green indicator in the square is visible. All right, I need to double check this. I had thought, at the very least, we get to identify 1 citizen. But I had thought you could potentially identify all of them. Move. All right. In the expanded rules in the rule book here, it says 1 trust per guard in the district. A hero may identify 1 or more citizens with this action. For every citizen you want to identify, pay 1 trust per guard in the district. Check the chosen citizen token or tokens and put it back without showing the great machine. Turn the check token, so blah, 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 blah. If there are no guards in the district, you may identify all or any citizens for free. Okay. So yeah, it kind of sounds like as long as you have paid the required amount of trust, or it could be free if there are no guards in the district. Once again, that's why you want to knock these guards out. But she paid 2, so if we want to, we can just reveal all of these citizen cards now. We can just take them all here, and there we go. We now know we have a trader here, we have a noble, so what we've done now is we've kind of made it so that Sylvia is only going to get 3 trust because the trader does not give her trust. That's the first thing we've done. Okay, we reduced our trust a little bit. But we also know we have 2 scientists here. We haven't yet. We are about to. We are probably going to unlock scientists soon. So this does mean we have no active citizens here at the moment, which is not terrible. We know who's here, but if a servant were to move here and it felt like if Judge Mentor especially were to move there and unactive citizen was there, one of these 2 scientists would be gone if they were active. He would just arrest it. We would then only have 3 citizens there, one of which is a trader. So all that to say, I guess in S&C you kind of need to be careful about doing the identify thing for all citizens, because if some of them are active, now you get more trust from those active citizens, but they are also at risk of being arrested if a servant moves in there. But okay, that is how identify works. We did attack, we did identify. So the final thing we're going to do is we're going to have the doc spend 2 trusts to get to the industrial district, and he can use his special move for free to yank this citizen from the Tower of Law and put it in the industrial district. And we can see this is a merchant. We have a merchant here now. Once again, not an active citizen, but we have 5 citizens, meaning the industrial district will give you 5 trusts. Okay? So, all right. And again, we didn't see these special guards or these raid tokens, but basically, if a hero ends their turn in a space with a servant, a raid just kind of automatically happens. They get detained, and there are also special rules regarding raids. Servants will get to do like an extra action for like a raid, and a raid is going to automatically happen right after a successful riot too. So there's also that. Okay. But let's finish out the turn here. Turn isn't technically over just yet. Now it looks like we knocked out these guards when we really didn't. Okay, that's great. Closing phase. We just look at this, and we can see we did not do the security protocol because we didn't get rid of our trust. So now we have to put a special guard in a random district. That is the central square. So now we've got 3 guards in the central square as opposed to 2. That's not great because that means we get less discontent as revolutionaries in the central square unless we start knocking some of those guards out. So there's that. Also, we didn't get our bonus because We need all heroes to be in minor districts. They aren't, but even if they were, we also didn't do the security protocol. So no bonus. Master plan. During this round, the heroes discard or cancel a directive or the Great Machine. Okay, so if nothing else, the master plan does not advance because the Great Machine did not get to draw and or publish any directives this turn. No servants ended up in any one of the districts required to publish a thing. None of the servants are in major districts other than the central square with Lex there, but she can't publish anything there. She just bumps up the progress marker quite a bit. Okay, so yeah, that is the end of the tutorial. Basically, we identified all the components for the solo mode. We did a few basic example turns here. So yeah, that's the tutorial video for City of the Great Machine. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope that you are as interested in this game as I am. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I like this game in a bit. But first, we're just going to do the normal outro. I'm just going to talk about like some basic ways that you can help support the channel if you're new here. But first of all, thank you. I don't want to forget to say that at the end, per se, of the video. Thank you if for watching and sticking with me. If you're still here, I do appreciate that. I appreciate you giving me your time, and I especially appreciate you doing so since I'm still just a small YouTuber who barely has any idea what he's doing, and I'm just trying to have a little fun on the internet here. So thank you for giving me some of your time. Also, while you're here and you're new, if you would like to help the channel, there are several ways that you can do that. There's the free YouTube things. You can click on the things, like, comment, subscribe. All that stuff does help, as far as I'm aware. I don't know how YouTube's algorithm works, but I would assume engagement in a video does help that video and that channel, right? So that stuff is free. It doesn't take that long. Consider that. Also, there are a couple links that you will find in the description. The first is for my donation site. It's called Ko-fi. It's basically an alternative to Patreon. It's independent type of site. No big donor money involved in Ko-fi. That's kind of why I like it. They also have a lot of neat features on there. So I do have a gallery of all the things that I have painted on there, or at least I am trying to put them all on there. I have to make everything look nice so that I can take pictures and upload it to my Ko-fi. But there is a gallery there. You can look at stuff there. I'm going to try to do some more posts and all that other jazz. But for the most part, hey, if you want to throw a few bucks my way to help the channel, to give me a little more money to invest in some new stuff, such as games like this, or more painting material to paint more models, cool. That would be awesome. I would appreciate that, and the channel will get a little bit better. So, beyond that, I am also on Blue Sky. If you like what I'm doing here, if you want to, stay up to date with the stuff that I'm working on for the channel in the background, that's one way to do it. You can go over to my Blue Sky, check out the, posts that I'm doing there. Usually that's just pictures of stuff that I have painted, videos that are about to go up, all that kind of jazz. That's on the Blue Sky there. Also, Blue Sky is just kind of cool, and go to Blue Sky to make Elon cry. Yeah, I don't like Elon Musk. That's a big part of the reason why I'm on Blue Sky. That's why a lot of people went there, because he just broke Twitter pretty much. But hey, Blue Sky is an alternative now. It's there. It's an easy way for creatives such as myself to communicate with each other and their communities and blah, 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 blah. So sure, follow me on Blue Sky if you want, or just go there and check out Blue Sky and or the stuff I'm doing, right? So, boom. That's how y'all can help the channel. And now that we're done talking about that, I want to talk a little bit more about like just the channel overall, right? So, yeah, I'm starting a new series here. And the eagle-eyed among you will notice that, like, I did mention this game in my intro trailer for the year for 2025. So this is something that I've been quietly working on to try and have fully painted stuff to show y'all, because as I've been talking about in this video, I love this game. This game is pretty dope. I like it. And here it is. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm abandoning the other stuff that I was working on. I just want to put that out there because people that have been looking at this channel for a while might notice there are some dead playlists that I just haven't been working on very much. I can assure you, part of the plan for this year is to focus on this game, Zombicide, and probably at least one-page rules. We're going to be working on that stuff to try and get things done for that, right? So, yeah, we're going back to Zombicide. We're still doing that. I just wanted to get a few videos out here for this one because I finished the core models. So I figured, all right, let's do a tutorial video so that if people just want to know the rules and the general vibe of the game, that's cool. Then we'll do a little trial game where everything's on easy mode and we play through a whole game to see what that's like. And then we'll go straight back to Zombicide. I am thinking I am going to try and do a bit more writing so that I can finish that first Zombicide story mode series that I started. And it's almost done. So I would like to finish that so I can then start working on other stuff, including the next chapter of that story. Because I still would like to try and use Zombicide as like a vehicle for telling stories with games. Because like I think of all the games that I have that I'm working on at the moment, Zombicide would probably be the easiest to do that with, because obviously The Walking Dead is a thing, so I could just sort of use Zombicide the board game to try and treat all the characters like they're in this ever-evolving story. So it's just something I can assure you I am kind of obsessed with it. I would like to do factions, and since I have Rue Morgue, by the way, if you're a Zombicide fan, I can use the Rue Morgue rules, I think, to have sort of faction conflicts. We could have two opposing teams of survivors that, like, aren't just competing for resources. They, like, actively kind of hate each other, right? So I'm just putting that out there. That's an idea that I have, right? So still working on those 3D Zombicide cards too. I want to get those done so that we've got painted 3D cards that will show up in the Zombicide games. And I would like my Zombicide games to get progressively more, eye-catching, I guess, over time. Like adding more 3D stuff, adding more like terrain stuff to like just bring the board slowly more and more to life, I suppose. That's another idea I've had for a while. So, okay, so we're still working on Zombicide. Here's City of the Great Machine. One-page rules is coming up at some point, so we're going to be looking at some armies and some combat. Some tabletop wargaming is going to be on this channel at some point in this year, okay? Right? So that's going to happen. And before we finally end this video, I just wanted to talk a little bit about like my personal impressions of this game and why I like it right at the very end here, because we've already done all the important stuff. If y'all don't care about my opinions, that's fine. You can just click off. That's fine. I'm not your mom. I can't tell you what to do. But here's the thing. I like this game not just because it's just a cool game and it's fun to play. And as I was describing the OVM mode, like I've done that once or twice with some of my friends, with my cousin. That is really interesting, really engaging stuff because like you really never know how this game is going to turn out with the way the each turn phase tends to go. Like as I was explaining earlier, the heroes have to call out where they're going to go before the machine gets to go, and stuff that the machine does might mess up what the heroes were going to do. And of course, in OVM, you have these access cards face down, so the machine player doesn't know where you're going. And they even have rules about like how the revolutionary players can talk to each other, because this is really neat. Like in OVM, you've got potentially a table of 4 people, right? 3 of them are revolutionaries, and 1 of them represents the Great Machine. Since the Great Machine is that you're this gigantic computer that spreads 3 whole city districts, and you have mechanical guards in every district, in addition to all these cybernetic servants and like cameras and microphones every gosh darn where, I would imagine. The rules state that revolutionaries have to talk and even gesture their hands in such a way that the Great Machine can see and hear them. That's kind of cool. That like they are representing the nature of the Great Machine in these rules. So like, sure, the revolutionaries can talk amongst themselves. They can talk shop about what they want to do. But the thing they cannot do is walk into another room and secretly plot as to what they want to do. They have to talk in front of the Great Machine. And if they reveal too much stuff to the Great Machine, the Great Machine knows what they're going to do. You don't want the other side to know what you're going to do. And that is probably one of the most interesting things about this game. It's this subtle cat and mouse sort of thing where like everybody's trying to deceive. Each side is trying to deceive the other. You're trying to trick the other side into thinking that you're going to do something that you aren't. And I know I mentioned this earlier, that's where the city events kind of come into play, because everyone can see what the city event is. Everyone can see which side gets bonuses for doing what. The assumption might be that the other side is going to do the thing that will get them a bonus. But maybe they decide to take an L for that because it's either just not a good idea for them to do that right now, other things are more important, or especially in OVM, you might not want to do what's on the card because that's just a great indicator to the other side that that's what the revolutionaries are going to do. So here's where I set up my raids as the Great Machine player. Anyway, so that's dope. I like that. I like those communication rules. That's kind of cool. So there's a lot of stuff I love about like the game, but like I guess what I also really love about this is the idea behind it, right? So sure, in a sense, this is like the steampunk genre. Steampunk is cool. If you like steampunk, you're going to like this game. There's steampunky stuff all over it. We also have this theme of like utopia that was supposed to be a utopia, but it is turning into a dystopia. So there's that. Now, this game is not explicit about this, but in my opinion, this is kind of like a lefty game. It's, again, remember where you are. This is direct action gaming. I have explicitly said this is leftist tabletop gaming. So now, if you take that into account, now y'all know why I like this game. This definitely gives me lefty vibes. This definitely gives me this impression that this is about leftists trying to organize the people. And we even have on the progress board here classes that are arranged in something of a hierarchy, right? So you notice the artists are at the bottom, the nobility is at the top, followed by industrialists and merchants. So if we want to use some lefty terminology here, in addition to a class-based hierarchy, we also have the owners of capital at the top here, whereas the artists that very likely don't own the capital are on the bottom because they have to work for the nobility and or the industrialists or merchants in order to like survive, right? So there's that. And that kind of means I get the impression that the Great Machine isn't just, it's kind of a placeholder for the system of capital in general. If you're a fan of Rage Against the Machine, maybe you know what I'm talking about here. Like, some leftists will refer to the system of capital as a machine that is independent of all the human actors that have something to do with it. It is a system that people are following more often than not, whether they want to or not. You know what I mean? As in, like, if you go to your job, it's probably not because you love what you do so much that you would just do it for free. Nah, man, you go to your job because you need that money. You need to pay your rent. So you're going to a place because you have to. You need that money to survive. And this is especially true here in Burgerland and or America, which is where I am, right? So yeah, the machine kind of represents capitalism in a way. We might interpret it that way. But as I said, this is not explicit. We're not explicitly saying, hey, here's some socialists that are trying to have a increase class consciousness to the proletariat to do a revolution to seize the means of production, right? We're not saying that outright, but that sure is the impression someone like me can get with how this game works and all the rules and components that are involved with it. And we might even interpret like the servants to be capitalists themselves, and or they are people that got invested in the system so deeply that they just cannot extract themselves from it. They are too invested in this system to sort of turn back and stop doing the things that they're doing. So even if they're doing like just really shady, immoral stuff, they're going to keep doing it. Because they, you know, they've got a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders and whatnot. So they need to keep getting more money to keep the shareholders happy and blah, 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 blah. All right, so, yeah. This is a game about a revolution. And not only are you doing a revolution, it is essential that you get the people on your side for that revolution to happen. And when the revolution occurs because the people are on your side, the great machine gets dismantled. That's about as lefty as you can get. That is some left-wing stuff, okay? So, anywho, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit at the end here. Because as I said, those are my personal impressions. Y'all don't have to agree with me, but I'm just going to put that out there, seeing as how this is leftist tabletop gaming. This ain't just tabletop gaming. You're going to get a bit of analysis here on this channel every now and again. And feel free to drop comments about how wrong I am with my analysis sometimes. That's fine. Legitimate feedback is always welcome. There's no way I'm right about everything. So, sure. I think we're done here. I gave my analysis. I did all the other things on my little outline here that's covered in coffee. This video has drawn on long enough. It was just supposed to be a tutorial video, right? We've done that. We've explained the game top to bottom. Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna see y'all later in the next thing, and the next thing is very likely gonna be that trial game I was talking about, where we just sort of go through the game on easy mode, and we're gonna, see what happens. Do the revolutionaries win, or does the machine crush everybody, right? We're gonna try not to spill coffee all over everything for that one. Okay, so take care of each other, take it easy, and I'm gonna see y'all in that next one.